Hi guys, and welcome to the channel, welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. It's the Empress, and in today's video we are going to be answering some of your guys' questions about tarot, divination, spirituality, energy, spell workings. I'm super excited to be doing this reading. I'm super excited to be doing this video, as this is a kind of video that I've been wanting to do and add to my channel for some time now. This is, I'm hoping, going to be more of a regular kind of video, so I don't know exactly how regular, maybe once a month or every couple of months, but either way, it is going to come back. I absolutely love talking about tarot and divination and spirituality and spell work and all of it. I just absolutely love it, and I can talk about it for hours, so it's definitely going to be something that you will be seeing on this channel. This is the first Q&A that I've done, and I'm super excited, so go ahead, grab yourself a notebook if you feel called to do so, a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, pull up a chair, and sit for a spell. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and jump right into this. I am going to be working through all of the questions that were left on the community post where I asked for any questions that you guys might have. And I'm just going to go through them in the order that they're in, so they might kind of seem out of order, but that's okay. We'll work with it, and we'll get better as we go. There is a few questions, so I'm not entirely sure how long this video is going to end up being, but let's go ahead. And our very first question today is, do you find that even after having a deck of cards for a significant amount of time that you come across cards you haven't seen before? And the answer to that is yes, and no. So to clarify a little bit, with tarot, I don't necessarily bring cards out that I haven't seen before, as I study. Tarot is my life. I study every day. And there's only 78 cards, and they don't necessarily change all that much depending on what kind of deck that you have. And but with that, even with different decks that I have, or specialty decks that I have, there are like new perspectives of particular cards that come up, new symbols that come up that I notice when I'm working with different decks, but not necessarily cards that I'm not familiar with. But with Oracle, that is a different ball game altogether, and there are definitely cards that come up still to this day that I'm not familiar with out of Oracle decks that I have. Out of the very first Oracle deck that I ever bought, I still get cards that come out of that I'm like, wow, I don't know that I've ever seen that before. So yes and no. With tarot, it's much more structured, and they don't change from deck to deck, really. I mean, depending on what kind of deck of cards that you use or that you prefer, but for the most part it's pretty structured, so it doesn't really change that much. But Oracle cards are all different, and they don't really have any guidelines or rules when it comes to any sort of structure or anything like that from deck to deck, and they're all different. So there's definitely cards that come out of Oracle decks that I haven't seen before. Just depending on what kind of reading I'm doing and what kind of energy I'm in or the client is in, really determines a lot of that, and usually it intrigues me and I have to study further into that particular deck when it does happen. So I do feel that when it does happen, it happens for a reason, not only for whom I'm reading for, but for myself as well. But let's go ahead and move on to question number 2. This question here says, I would love to know how you first heard from your spirit guides. And this question is kind of difficult. So when I first had my first spiritual awakening, it was through a tarot card reading that I had, and I think that's why I just jumped so hard into tarot when it happened for me, is because that was the catalyst for me, was a tarot reading. And I do feel that like my guides came through there, and that was my first initial kind of contact, I feel, with my guides. That was a very intense, it was a very massive spiritual awakening. Like, everything happened all at once for me when it did happen. And after that, I would have to say that probably through a past life regression that I had done was the next most significant kind of contact that I had made with my guides. But also with that, I realized that after I started kind of diving into my spiritual journey and diving into my spirituality and learning more about that aspect of myself and learning more about my guides and about how to connect with them, I also realized that they had been there the entire time. I just wasn't aware of what I was looking at. So really, it was more so that my very first tarot reading that I had done for me was the awakening, where then I was able to see my guides. I was able to see where they were at in my life and how they came through for me, which for me, everything comes through in a very almost internal dialogue for me, like in my daily life and things like that. I am very heavily dominated. My major placements in my birth chart, my sun, moon, and rising are Libra, Libra, Aquarius. I'm very, very dominated by air signs, so a lot of my communication from my guides and things like that definitely come through mentally and through like knowledge, learning. I love to learn new things. I love to seek knowledge, and I feel like that is a big part of how I connect with my guides. I just never knew that that's what it was before I had my first awakening. I hope that answers your question. So our next question here is, do you believe there is a certain way to shuffle cards, and where did you learn to do so? So this is a great question. I love these kinds of questions, and I love kind of clearing this kind of stigmatism that there is around tarot cards. So is there a certain way to shuffle? Absolutely not. Where did I learn how to shuffle myself? Practice. It took me 2 years before I really fell into a way of shuffling my cards that felt right for me. And in those first 2 years, I was just trying to find what worked for me. It wasn't the same as everybody else. Like, definitely, if you feel drawn to like what somebody else does or what somebody else teaches you on how they do it, try it and see what it feels like. But if it feels unnatural or it doesn't feel right for you, then try something else. Honestly, I shuffle my cards just like a regular deck of cards. It's not, I have though thought about learning like card tricks, like the magicians that do like card tricks and they shuffle all fancy and stuff like that. I think that would be amazing, and I would love to see a tarot reader do that. If you guys know of any, let me know, because I think that would be really cool. It would be a really cool show anyway, and really kind of visually pleasing, especially for things like YouTube and, you know, that kind of thing. Anyways, there's not a certain way to shuffle your cards. It's just what feels right to you. Sometimes I just shuffle kind of overhand. Sometimes I shuffle like regular playing cards. Those are really the two that I go back and forth with, and I really think that it just depends on the energy that I'm trying to tune into with the cards. If it's more of a gentle reading, I will shuffle gentler. If I'm trying to clear the energy from the cards, that's usually when I do like the normal playing card shuffle, because it's a little more aggressive and it kind of moves energy a little more aggressively. But no, there's not a certain way. Just try different things until you find what works for you. Our next question here is, what kind of spiritual practice is best for you when strengthening your connection to the spirit world? This is going to be different for everybody. In my experience, strengthening my connection to the spirit world has everything to do with ancestor work. I have ancestors that have passed on that I was very, very close and connected to, and when they passed on, it was like they opened, I guess this depends as well on what you mean by spirit world. If you are just talking about like, connecting to like mediumship abilities, connecting to passed on spirits and things like, you know, people that were actually here on this earth at this time, my best advice from my own experience would be ancestral work, ancestral path workings, even if you're interested in like Native American cultures or shamanism, things like that, I feel are very, very, very good to learn about how to connect to passed on spirits or ancestors, even ancestral work. Very, very, very good place to start is working, learning about shamanism and Native American culture and things like that, at least in my own experience. If you're meaning more like higher dimensional planes or like astral planes as far as spirit world, meditation, astral projection, dream work, lucid dreaming, studying those things and really doing the work to be able to do those things. Because a lot of us in the spiritual and tarot community talk about lucid dreaming, we talk about dream work, we talk about meditation, we talk about journaling, we talk about all of it, and we say, you know, do this or it will help. If you don't actually put the work in to commit yourself to those practices in order to be able to have those experiences for yourself, it's never going to work. You can have the understanding of how to do it all day long. You can have the mental understanding, but until you put that mental understanding into action on a regular basis, you're never going to have that experience. So it does take work. It is work. It is a practice that you have to continue to do, and it can be kind of difficult, especially if you're just getting into that world, because it can be kind of disheartening to do the practices, you know, for a week or a month even and not have any experiences at all. It can be kind of discouraging, but you got to push through that. You have to break through that kind of barrier, because when we get to these parts where it's disheartening or discouraging, that's where the breakthroughs happen, is when we continue doing the things even after we feel like we can't do it or we can't accomplish it. So really with that, I would definitely suggest connecting to ancestors for any kind of mediumship or anything like that. And I would also suggest working with your dreams or meditations and astral projection, things like studying things like that, for connecting to like higher dimensional planes. So I hope that answers your question. If not, then clarify a little bit for me down in the comments section below, and I will get back to you on these questions. With any of these questions here, if you need more clarification or anything like that, just let me know. Our next question here is, how do you stay fluid with the energy without being distracted by your own ego conscious? I sometimes struggle to decipher the difference myself. And this is an amazing question. Amazing question, because most people don't ask this question. A lot of people don't ask this question. A lot of people aren't aware that there is a difference. Practice is going to be very significant. The fact that you aren't sure sometimes tells me that you are becoming more and more aware of self and of ego. And that means you're already making progress. But my best advice would be to focus on becoming more aware of the reactions you have to certain things. Like if you're speaking in terms of like tarot reading, or when you're doing divination practices, and how to stay kind of in the flow of those kinds of energies while you're reading, my best advice would be to read for yourself, and really try to become aware of when it triggers you, when it makes you uncomfortable, when you feel like you didn't get the right card or you need to shuffle again and pull out a different card, in order to become aware of what it feels like when your ego takes over. Because it's much easier to read for other people than it is to read for yourself. It just is. It's easier to see other people than it is to see yourself. And I feel like that's for everybody. I don't think that's uncommon, really. But if you want to really work with that energy and overcome that kind of takeover of the ego, if you will, it's really about practice. Practicing pulling cards for yourself, I feel, would be the best way to do it. because there are going to be questions that you ask where you get a card that you don't want. There are going to be readings that you do for yourself where you're like, oh, well, that's not even true. I need to shuffle new cards out. And that's really going to be the best place for you to find where your ego takes over. And if that's what you are specifically working for, is to kind of overcome that and to be able to decipher between the subconscious and the conscious, or the ego and the being fluid with the energy, instead of allowing your ego to block you. I feel like that would be the best way to do it. I hope that makes sense for you. So moving on, our next question. I know when I am actually meant to do a reading because the cards fly out as I shuffle. Sometimes so many fly out individually that I don't even bother to actually deal. Does this happen to you? If it does, do you bother to deal the cards afterwards? This depends. I am a very intuitive reader, so a lot of the times if I'm asking a question and 3 cards fly out, I will take those 3 cards. But where it kind of differs from that is if I go into a reading knowing that I'm doing a specific spread, just for example's sake, say we're doing the Celtic Cross, which is 10 cards. Each card has a specific placement and a specific kind of meaning behind it, right? And if I'm shuffling for the first card of the Celtic Cross spread, which is the sitter's energy, or my energy if I'm doing it for me, and I get 4 or 5 cards that want to come out, I will, depending on what the question is, on what I'm doing the reading for, I will look at the cards that come out, but then I will shuffle again and specifically ask for 1 card for that spot so that it's a clearer message. If I have a specific spread that I'm doing, most of the time I will try to get a specific card for each placement. If extra cards come out, they will be just that. They will be extra cards, either clarifiers or kind of to expand on my reading. But like if I'm doing a Celtic Cross and I'm shuffling and 5 cards come out, if they feel like they're meant to be a part of the reading, I will put them in the placement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then shuffle out the rest of the cards after that sometimes as well. It just depends on how it feels, I guess. But if I just have like a very broad, or if I'm doing a general reading and I'm just shuffling like what is the current energy and 5 cards come out, then yeah, I'll just take those cards. I don't need to deal anymore after that unless it feels like I need more. I also have found that a lot of the times I pull my cards from the bottom of the deck instead of the top after I shuffle, and I feel like that's more just, for me, it kind of represents more of like subconscious energy that I'm bringing forward instead of surface level or ego level even information that I'm bringing forward. That's just kind of something that I've started doing, picked up along the way in my own practices, something that just, I guess, works better for me. But yes, so if it's just a general question or a general read where I'm asking, show me the energy of the day ahead, or show me the energy of this person, or show me the energy of this situation, and cards just want to come out while I'm shuffling, I'll take that. If I have a specific reading I'm doing in a specific spread, I will make sure that I have a card for every placement, and a lot of the times I will do it kind of individually. If extra cards come out, they will sometimes be put to the side and read as extras or add-ons, if you will. And sometimes I'll just put them all back in the deck, and if some of those come back out in specific placements, that's just kind of a validation or a confirmation for me that it was meant to come out and that it did have to do with that reading. So yeah, so let's go ahead. Our next question here is, do you speak with those who pass on? If so, have you ever found out someone passed because they came to you in death? Very, very interesting question. I am a medium. That is one of my stronger suits, if you will. And I think a lot of that is just like my connection to my ancestors, and specifically my connection to my ancestors that have passed on since I've been living, as I was talking about before. Like my grandfather, I was very connected to him, and when he passed on, it was like he opened up a new kind of access to the spirit world, if you will, to my mediumship even. Like, it expanded so far. So when I connect to him, it's like I strengthen my mediumship abilities almost when I do that first. And to answer your question, I do speak with those who passed on. A lot of the times they come to me in dreams. A lot of the times I will dream about people who have passed on, dream about how they passed on or why they passed on a lot of the times. I've never had anybody that I know come to me after they passed on and kind of let me know that they passed on. But I have had spirits come to me in readings that the sitter wasn't aware that they had passed. And that's not really anything that I really like to experience. That's a really touchy subject, and there's a lot of like ethical energies that go into mediumship readings and things like that. So it wasn't something that I necessarily enjoyed reading, because as I was doing this reading, I was talking about this person that was coming up in the reading, and it turned out that that person had been missing. So it wasn't, I can't really even confirm that they had passed on, but due to the fact that it was a mediumship reading and I was specifically asking for spirits to come forth, it wasn't, I don't like doing that to people. I don't like it. But it is one of my strongest abilities, so I feel like I almost have this responsibility, and I think that's a big part of the reason why I don't like it. It's because it creates an environment where I'm very aware of how I'm presenting messages. It makes me very aware of how certain things impact and influence people. And because when people come to you for readings like that, they're usually in a very vulnerable state. They're usually grieving. They're usually seeking answers, feeling lost. And that puts a lot of responsibility on the reader. And if you are ethically sound and have morals, you'll be very careful with those things. So I don't even really want to specifically talk about how all of that happened, because it was for a client. But it can happen, but it's not anything that I ever want to happen. So yeah, not anybody that I've ever actually known myself has come forth and told me that they've passed on without me knowing about it in the physical world, but that has happened for people that I've done readings for. Do you read reversals? Do you believe that it actually applies to the reading? Good question. Yes and no. Do I read reversals? Yes. Does it always have to be when the card's upside down? No. A lot of the times I keep all of my cards upright, and a big part of that comes into play with the way that it makes other people react or shut down to the reading that they are paying for. But I feel like I feel like reversals have more to do with the energy of the reading than the physical upright or upside down position of the card. So let's say here I did pull some cards out. Let's see here. Okay. So we have the Prince of Swords here, right? And the King of Cups and the Four of Cups. Okay, so if I was reading these cards for somebody, I would read them depending on what is in front and behind them. So like the King of Cups here can talk about, emotional control, emotional satisfaction, being very emotionally aware. It can also, in the reverse, speak of narcissism and controlling energies, manipulations, things like that. So if this card came out with this card next to it, the Four of Cups, I would probably, depending on what the reading was for, I would probably read this King of Cups in reverse with this Four of Cups next to it, because this specific deck, with the way this king is sitting and the way would be looking at this woman in the Four of Cups, almost like he's spying or controlling or trying to be very aware of the movement that she makes, that just speaks to me of controlling, of narcissism, things like that. But it doesn't have to be like this for me to get this. Honestly, if it was like this, I would think that maybe this Four of Cups was more prominent in the reading than anything, and that there was a resistance to emotions if it came out like this. So really it just depends. It depends on the reading. It depends on the cards around the specific card and the energy of the reading. It depends on the question that's being asked for the reading. I do read reversals, but it's more so about the energy of the reading than the physical placement of the cards. And with that, we also, the next question here is, do you cleanse your cards before every reading? And that's going to kind of tie into this last question, because the answer is yes. Yes, I do. And if if a specific deck of cards feels exceedingly like it needs cleansed, I will just reset the entire deck. And by that I mean I will turn all of the cards upright and put them in order, and then cleanse them, and then I'll use them. So to me that's kind of, I don't know, I usually when I cleanse my cards, I turn all the cards upright. And then I use them, so a lot of the times none of the cards will come out upside down, but it's all about the energy. I do cleanse my cards before I read every time, and I also have, so I smoke cleanse a lot, not only just my cards, but my entire room, my entire office before and during, while I'm doing readings. Every time I always do that. Even coming into this video here, I had some valerian root burning here to just kind of cleanse and calm the energy in the room. When you do tarot readings a lot, you get a lot of energy. You get a lot of different energy. You get a lot of other people's energies. So I like to clear my space a lot. I like to clear my cards a lot. And as I was talking about with like the shuffling, I will use that sometimes to kind of get excess energy out of my cards. I smoke cleanse, and I usually have certain stones or crystals sitting on every deck of my cards that I'm using in a specific reading. And a lot of the times it's like selenite, because selenite is a energizing kind of stone and cleansing stone. I also have this selenite moon, and this sits on my desk where I do my readings, and my tarot cards, my main tarot card deck that I'm using in a reading, will sit on this the entire time. I also have this kind of plate here that I use as well for the same reasons, but this one is a little bit more about, I feel like this one kind of absorbs energy, so I put cards that may have a lot of extra energy on here, or if I'm doing a reading that has a lot of energies coming in, I'll put it on this, because this specific plate here, it's almost like it absorbs, it reminds me of clay, and it like draws stuff out. It's almost like salt. It like absorbs energy, and I absolutely love this. And so yeah, I cleanse every deck of cards that I use in every reading, between every pile, even in my pick a card readings, just so that I can get the clearest messages and really tune into each specific reading. Yeah. So moving on, our next question here is, are the lovers always about love? And I love this question. The answer is no, it's not. It definitely can seem that way, especially even with a name like the Lovers. And it's usually always interpreted that way. It definitely does have ties to love and to romantic relationships. It definitely does, for sure, and that is a big energy of that card, but that's not all that it represents. I pulled a few of these out as well. So the first one I have here, we have this Lovers, and this is from the Druid Craft Tarot deck. This specific Lovers card really speaks of romantic intimacy, speaks of sexual desire, sexual attraction, romantic attraction. So this is more like physical love. For me, in the readings that I do, that would be the energy that I would probably pick up on first here, is physical love. But then we have, from the original kind of Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, the Lovers here, and this specific card speaks more to me of Adam and Eve. This specific card speaks more to me of the divine feminine and masculine within all of us, as well as the subconscious and conscious mind. Adam and Eve, to me, in my own personal experience and beliefs, Adam and Eve and that story has everything to do with when our conscious and subconscious mind was severed, when our connection to spirit was kind of severed, and we had to work to regain that. That's kind of how I view that story in a very summed up short version. And that's really the vibe that I get from this specific Lovers card. So if this card came up in a reading, this would be, for me, this would be about finding a balance between your own masculine and feminine energy within you. Then we have this from the Universal Celtic Tarot, this Lovers card, and this is about committed love or spontaneous love. This is about that desire for long-term commitment, or that desire to kind of chase the spontaneous, short-lived flame. But with the Lovers card, it's more about union. It's about drawing things together, whether that is another person. It reminds me of the law of attraction, really. The Lovers, for me, is about the law of attraction. It's about what you are drawing to you, what you are coming into union with, what you are connecting to. The Lovers is ruled by Gemini, which is third house energy, which is all about communication, networking, the way we connect and present ourselves to other people. So that definitely plays a role. But Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is an air sign. So it's kind of like trust as well. So it's not just about love. It's about partnership. It's about teamwork. It is about romantic relationships as well, obviously, but partnership, teamwork, trust, choices. If I had to sum it up, those are the keywords that I would use. Love is a choice. Love is a verb. Love is something that you do. It's something that you obtain. It's something that you give. It exists everywhere, but it's something that you have to make the active choice to pursue, the active choice to live in, the active choice to give. Interesting. So no, the answer is no. It's not just about love. It's about the choices that we make and their consequences. It's about partnership, teamwork, the ability to trust ourselves and others. It's about our divine masculine and feminine. It's about our subconscious and our ego. So yeah, it really just depends on the reading and how it's presented and what kind of tarot deck is presenting it, because that's going to make a big difference on the kind of energy that it gives off. So, yeah. Our next question here, do you have spiritual baths? Do I take spiritual baths? Yes. One of the biggest spiritual practices that I have is my spiritual baths. I'm very connected to the water element in regards to my spiritual practices. That is where I am able to best get into a specific mindset, where I'm best able to meditate, and where I'm best able to tune into certain frequencies and be able to feel them. It's also very grounding for me. I suggest them to everybody, even if it's just to cleanse your energy or cleansing meditation. And working with the elements, it's very, very good for working with the elements. It's also very good for working with your emotions. If there are emotional blockages, or if you're unaware of why you can't feel certain things or why you can't stop feeling certain things, tuning into the water element is going to be very, very, very beneficial for you. So yeah, I highly recommend them. Highly, highly recommend them. If you meant something else by that, just let me know. And then our last question here is angels and demons, or angels versus demons. And I'm not entirely sure what the question is there, but I feel like it kind of depends on your culture and your religion, if you have any, or the kind of practices that you do. Your beliefs are going to play a huge role in the answer to that, because angels and demons mean different things to different people. My idea of angels and demons are the density of vibration. I kind of believe that everything exists on the same plane but overlaps each other. So when I say a higher frequency, a higher vibration, or a higher dimension, a higher plane, it's just a higher vibration of energy that we can't sense because of the energy that we are in. We are in a very physical, dense energy in order to be in physical form. And the denser that it gets, the more lower vibrational that it gets. I guess it would depend on what you are wanting this information for with the angels versus demons. If you are needing to tune into higher vibrational energies, angelic assistance can be very helpful. Are there times where you may need to tune into more demonic energies or lower vibrational energies? Maybe. A lot of that depends on what you believe in, what you're doing it for, how you're doing it, what your intentions are. I don't believe that there's necessarily good and bad. I believe that intention drives that. If you have a knife, you can choose to cut an apple, or you can choose to stab someone. It doesn't make the knife bad. That makes your intentions bad. So depending on what you're tuning into, say, demon energy for, can really determine whether or not you should be. I think it's very, very wise to learn about everything that you can, including things that you're not going to touch. Because if you aren't aware or knowledgeable in the areas that you are trying to avoid, or that you don't want to practice, or that you don't want to be in contact with, if you don't have any information surrounding them, then how are you going to know if you are in contact with it, or if you are doing those certain things? So I do believe that it's necessary to learn about everything. Even if it's something you don't like, even if it's something that you like, baneful magic, or lower vibrational demonic energies, or anything black magic, anything that you perceive as bad, still learn about it. Because if you don't learn about it and you just block it out as if it doesn't exist because you think that it's a bad thing, chances are you're probably tuning into it somewhere, and your ego's trying to protect you from having that awareness. I don't really know what else to say about that. If you have a specific question about angels and demons, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. I wouldn't choose one over the other. I don't necessarily work with either one either. Sometimes Archangel Michael will kind of nudge me a little bit, or at least he has. So I have done some studying on like the archangels and things like that. I do believe that we have guardian angels, but I also believe that demons can be guides as well. So really it just depends. It depends on where you're at in your journey. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. It depends on what you believe in. My idea of angels and demons is not the same idea as the Bible's version of angels and demons, if you will. I don't believe in it the same way that a lot of people do, which I feel is probably why I was led to this life, to this lifestyle, to this path. But yeah, if you have any like specific questions about angels and demons or angels versus demons, let me know. But yeah, that's just kind of where I stand and how I see that situation. I don't believe there's good or bad or good or evil. I believe the intention behind the working or behind the connection is what makes it so. So yeah, just knowledge, studying. Demons are connected more to like the fire element, which is all about spirit and tower energy. In the tarot, that's kind of what I'm picking up on right now, tower energy. So demons may be good to work with when you're trying to like deconstruct some sort of energy in your life, or trying to restart, or trying to shake things up. And angels may be better for you to work with when you're trying to rebuild, or trying to ascend, or raise your vibration, things like that. But yeah, so those are the questions I had for you guys today. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to cut this down, but it might end up being a little bit of a longer video. So definitely let me know what other questions that you guys have, or if you need any clarification on the questions that we talked about here today. Let me know if you guys want to talk more about tarot or specific tarot cards. Maybe we can work some kind of series in with that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this video. I hope you guys did too. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with anybody who you feel might gain value from my videos. I thank you guys so freaking much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.